On Perek Dalet Halacha Gimel, page 34. It's on the base. A little bit harder Gemara tonight than we had the past few nights. When it's not allowed to split off wood from a board or beam, which is designated for building, and if it's whole or if it's broken, if it broke on Yontif. However, it broke before Yontif, you're allowed to then already it's considered firewood, and one is allowed to break off sticks to use for firewood. But even when that is permitted, ein mevakin lo b'kurdim, one cannot use the type of implements which one normally uses to cut wood, chop wood. A kurdum is an axe, lo mamagul is a saw, not a saw, a scythe. V'lo gira, not a saw. Ela b'kupitz, so kupitz is like a butcher's cleaver, right, which you're allowed to use in order to cut because it's a shinui. So even when you're allowed to cut from a beam because it was broken before Yontif, so it already became firewood, you have to specifically use a shinui. Now here's the interesting halacha: Baishu mole peiros. You have a house which is full of fruit, v'sosum, and it's closed up, v'nivchas, and a hole opens in the side. It was completely closed up, sealed, and the hole opens on the side. Then nota milk and pras, you can take fruit out from the place where the hole opened up. Rameir says you can actually you can break the house and take stuff out of it. It's a fascinating thing because the Chorah makes the rice of Soser, breaking down a house on Shabbos, right? So on Yontif. So the Mefarshim say, or the Bavli says here, the Yerushalmi is not explicit, it's talking about a house which is put together without any mortar. So it's just bricks, one on top of the other. So that's why you can take it apart in order to get at the food, because it's really Nissa D'Rabbanan, not Nissa D'Oraisa, and Mokom of food, Ochel Nefesh, not just Ochel Nefesh, be Shamutzer and Shabbos also. But in terms of food, they weren't grazer. You can take apart the bricks and to go ahead, stick your hand in and take out the food.
Also, you're not taking it apart to rebuild it. You're just taking it apart to get the food. Isn't the malacha
true? But we wouldn't be making so I'm not leavnos, but that's true. It wouldn't be, I guess, D'Oraisa anyway. But we still wouldn't be mattered if it was, the melach d'oraisa, even if it's a melach she'en tzich l'gufa, not done for the right purpose, right? Because here it's beneficial to be sosa, right? Mm-hmm. So it's melach she'en tzich l'gufa. You're not doing naslivnos, but you do it for a beneficial purpose. So therefore, I don't think we'd be matir. That's what the Bible says. We wouldn't be matir if not for the fact that there was no cement holding the bricks together. Okay, one cannot say, this is a quote from the Mishnah, one cannot split wood from a whole beam, and even if the beam was broken, but that's only if the beam was broken on Yontif. If the beam was broken from before Yontif, that's fine. Mutter. Now, that's That's only if when it's broken, it no longer looks like a beam that is suitable to build into your building. But if it still looks like a viable beam, so then, even if it's broken before Yontif, it's osir. Why? Because it still retains its din as being its characteristic of being a building construction material. Tani, we learned sukkos ta'enim, which are not a sukkah, but rather here means a branch of a fig tree, uvoim ta'enim, which has figs on it. Of course, it's severed from the tree itself. Umechabdos, or a cluster from a palm tree, uvoim ta'enim, in which there are dates attached. Sheichnisan lochlin, where you gather these branches before Yontif in order to eat from them. You're allowed to eat from them. What, however, if you gathered them before Yontif for the purpose of wood? Interesting thing, they have fruit on them, but you gather them to use for firewood. So, you're not allowed to eat its fruit on Yontif. It's an amazing concept.
We had that before.
We did?
Yes. Where if something is
yeah, you're right. No, but that's the next one, isn't it?
No,
we had this also?
Yeah.
Okay, I trust you. Your memory is far better than mine. But it's an amazing concept. It gives me pause, because it means that even though generally speaking, food is the primary human need for which everything is designated. But here, since you designated the wood for firewood, you can't eat the fruit which is on the, and you recall this from somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, I trust you.
I made a note of it. I remember there's something. I think when we learned it, you sort of like remarked how remarkable it was.
Okay, that's right. Yes. Okay, that's good.
I have to check exactly what it was.
All right. Period. Rav Amar, new issue. Mesikim b'kelim ve'em mesikim b'shivrei. It's interesting halacha. You're allowed to use kelim in your fire on Shabbos, but not shivrei kelim, not broken kelim. Now, says the more wait. That's only if the kelim broke on Yontif. Okay? Meaning, this is talking about, obviously the kelim which you're burning are kelim which you designated before Yontif to be firewood, right? So you can use them. But what if before Yontif they were designated to be building material or pots, pans, whatever they were. And then on Yontif they broke, and then you want to use them as fire fuel, that you're not allowed to do, okay? That's forbidden. The kelim shenishbu erev the kelim broken erev then of course they were designated to be for fire fuel, and that's certainly mutter. That's also kshein aleim Torah kli. That's when they don't have the appearance of a vessel, because then if they broke on Yontif to the point where they no longer look like a vessel, so then they're muktzah. Avayesh aleim Torah kli, but if they broke on Yotif, but still retain the Torah Keli, I feel Nishbra B'Yotif, even if they broke on Yotif, it's mutter. So, obviously in this situation, we're talking about a Keli, which before Yotif could have been firewood. Again, it's hard to, it has to be that before Yotif, it could have been firewood, right? It was a Keli, but it couldn't be used as firewood. Then on Yotif, it broke. So then, if on Yontif it broke and it lost its Torah Keli altogether, so for reasons I don't fully understand, it can't be used as firewood. If it didn't lose its Torah Keli, then it can be used as firewood. Okay? Again, if it lost its image as a vessel, you can't use it as firewood. If it still retains some image as a vessel, you can use it as firewood. So, either Rav is arguing on our Mishnah, which is unlikely. Our Mishnah said, of course, that kaira you can't use as firewood, right? Or Rav is talking about a lower down type of keli, a keli which could be used as firewood. And what bears that out is the Pnei Moshe in the Mishnah. The Pnei Moshe says that the Pnei Moshe says that this korah is a beam which is muktzah machmas chesron kis. In other words, it's very special and valuable, right? So therefore, you're not going to use it for firewood unless there's some clear-cut breakage in it before Yontif, which designates it firewood. Oh, it's not firewood, and it remains muktzah. Rav is talking about, must be, again, this is just my hypothesis, but I think it's correct. Rav is talking about something which is not as choshev, so it's not muktzah machmas chesron kis, so therefore, even though it's a keli, you can use it as firewood. However, the irony about that one is that now if it breaks on Yontif, it loses its din of a keli, it doesn't become definite firewood. No, it becomes usher to use. You can't use it because it was designated as a keli / firewood, and if it breaks on Yontif, it loses that designation, it becomes muktzah. It's only if it retains the Torah keli after it breaks that then it retains its designation as firewood / keli / firewood, and you can use it. Okay,
makes sense because it was a designated. it was a keli before Yontif, and even though it's broken, it's a keli during Yontif.
Right. But again, you have to say these are not muktzah machmas chesron kis, that they're a lower type of keli than the ones we talked about in the Mishnah. So in Rav, I'm seeking mekayin, I'm seeking mishmarim. Shivikelim Hadad Amar Kem Shishbur Yontif. This is talking about Kem which are broken Yontif. Kem Shishbur Be'erev Yontif. Mutter. That's okay. If they're broken before Yontif, obviously they're ready firewood from before Yontif. That which they're broken on Yontif and you can't use them is B'Shem Ben Torah Kli, where they lost their Torah Kli. Avishim Torah Kli, but if they retain the image of the vessel, I feel Nishbur Yontif, even they broken Yontif, the Mutter. Tana Reb Chia learned Mesikim Ba'ochlin. It was in fact Halach L'Maisa. You're allowed to use food as fuel. Avalo b'kli payan, but not shells, nor pits. Now that means after you eat the food, you can't use whatever's left over as fuel. Again, because since it was designated as food before Yontif, it's muktzah for any other purpose. If it's still food, if you have a whole date, you can toss it into your oven as fuel. But if you ate it and now all you left is the pit or the peel, then you can't toss it into your oven as fuel. It's an amazing concept, right? Well, it has to be designated for fuel because otherwise it's considered to be food.
Well, it's consistent with the keli that is broken. And
right, it's very consistent with Rav's previous statement about Torah keli, right? So it says more, Rav have a Yosef Kumi Rabbi Chia Rabba. Rav is sitting in front of Rabbi Chia the Great. Vav Achel, he was eating dates. Vav Mischamid, now is a tremendous machlokes among the Mepharshim. This happened on Yontif or didn't happen on Yontif. The Korban says it happened the rest of the year. Almost all the other Mepharshim say it happened on Yontif. So at first I thought learning the Korban, but now I think I'm going to learn like the other Mepharshim that it happened on Yontif. So Hava Mischame, Reb Chia saw Zora Kotafye, that Rav was throwing the pits inside the oven, right? The Zora Kume Tafye, and somebody threw in front of the oven. Now, the ones you can't throw in the oven, according to Reb Chia, right? Because throwing in the oven pits is also right because they're not fuel. I mean, they're fuel, but they weren't designated for Yontif. On Reb Chia Rabbo said to him, Hachazrok, throw it here, not in the oven. So Amalei Mabin Hachal. What's the difference? Amalei, so he said, Ben Picha, son of great ones. Achareim. Now, Achareim is an interesting term. The Shinun is close in the bottom, and the Leiden manuscript have Achareim. And the Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael on his own thought of the words that there should say Achareim, because that's a term which is used elsewhere in Shas. The Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael knew this. It's used elsewhere in Yerushalmi to mean we must follow the words of the rabbis. We must follow them. Achareim. We must follow the words of the rabbis. So the rabbi said, Rabbi Chia himself brought this down, that you're not allowed to throw pits directly into the fire. So therefore we have to listen to them and not put pits directly in the fire. The Korban gives a different shot. Korban says that he would tell, again, he's going to Shitosu, it's on a weekday. So he told him, don't throw here, throw there. Rav said, why? So he said, because it's not Derech Eretz. He was teaching him Derech Eretz. Rav was his nephew, right? So instead of saying to Rav, it's not Derech Eretz to throw pits in front of people. So throw them somewhere where people don't see. Achrei means behind people, not in front of them. So it's a Derech Eretz thing. But again, as I say, the concept of Achrei indicates more like the other Meforshim. And it's saying that we have to follow the Rabbanu said not to throw it into a fire in Yosef. Amar Achina said, Uchla Avazork. He was tossing out dates which are only partially eaten. Rav Chia didn't notice it. But Rava said, since only partially eaten, they still had food adherent to them, they can be thrown into the fire. Because again, food is not muktzah. The type of muktzah which the pits are, I forgot to mention the word before, it's an important word, is noilad. Because it wasn't a pit before Yontif, now it became a pit. It wasn't a shell before Yontif, now it became a shell. You can't use it as fuel because it's noilad. But as a fruit, you can throw it into the fire. So Rava threw it into the fire because he thought it was food. Rabbi Ami. Now here, this next phrase has about a gazillion interpretations. One interpretation, Rabbi Ami, Bavlaya Chayla Hava. The Babylonian, meaning Rav, who was a Babylonian, was sick. So that's why he wasn't consuming the whole date, and there was still something on it. Another interpretation is, Rabbi Ami Bavlaya, Rabbi Ami from Bavel said, Chula Hava. This incident happened on a weekday, right? With an aleph. The Gra changed the girsa to an aleph. It was a weekday on which the Maisa happened. So there are a whole bunch of interpretations on that, and if it happened on a weekday, so then rest if you interpret it like that, so the rest of them were Amar Rabbi Yan, Amar Rav, or I don't know who the next. So I guess is the word missing. It should be Amar Rabbi somebody. It doesn't say who said it. I don't think it should be. It's Rav. Somebody said concerning this episode, Connected can be also beyond. Even if that took place on a weekday, Lamais, it's also to throw it into a fire in Yontif, because that's what Rabbi Chia the Great said, that you can't throw the pits directly into the fire on Yontif. Okay, says Gemara lo bekurdem. Not you can't use a kurdem. The base Rabbi Yana mevakim bekurdem. When it's allowed to use an axe to split to chop firewood on Yontif, and he argues in our Mishnah, which says you're not allowed to. Tana Rabbi Yeshua says also mevakim bekurdem. Shmuel Amar Aloch Mishoimer mevakim bekurdem. Aloch you're allowed to use an axe on Yontif. Tana Rabbi Yeshua ben Keeper b'Shem Mishoimer Mishum Elazar ben Shamua b'Shamay Osrim b'Sil Matir is a machlokas b'Sil is Matir. So our Mishnah be going to b'Shamay. Loba Magol. You're not allowed to use a scythe. East Tani, there are those who learn mevakim, you can't use a scythe. East Tani, those who said aim mevakim, you can't use a scythe. Amar Rav Chistor said Mando Amar mevakim says you can't use a scythe. Memakol shayot. It's a small scythe, a hand sickle, Mando Amar aim mevakim says you can't. But Memakol shayot, it's talking about a large sickle, the one you use in order to harvest your grain, which is much larger, and that's much more uvda d'chol. Istani Tani is similar Gemara where we have contradiction prices and we reconcile them. Istani Tani, Mefaspasin, it should be Beklukim, the Gilead Ephraim says. Now, everybody, the Gilead Ephraim brings down the Korban Adam, but Moshe says they're both wrong, so I'm not going to tell you what they say. But what he says is, it means he and the Radal here say something similar, say it means to comb your hair. Mefaspasin means comb, Klukim means according to Radal, sweaty hair which is sticking together. So kluki means hair which is messed up in some way, shape, or form. So Istani Tani, one says you can, one says aim fasi, not allowed to. Rav Chisda Mandamar fasi, who says you're allowed to comb? Bibari, it's talking about where one has strong hair, so it won't be pulled out by the comb. Mandamar aim fasi, not allowed to comb here on Yontif or Shabbos. Bitosh, it's with weak hair where the hair will be pulled out by a comb.
Isn't that with fast? They talk about combing hair. Isn't that with the sin?
Here, this is with the sin. Oh, with the samach. No, it's with the samach, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, they're interchangeable, so that would be no raya. But the word does appear by nazir. Fast the same. Nazir is. All right. Istani Tani, another one. Marli matze b'samim. You're allowed to rub b'samim wood in order to get a fragrance. Istani Tani Emily, those say you can't. Manam Amolinu says you can do. Palachim, it's by moist b'samim, where it's not going to crumble. Mandamar Emily, we're not allowed to do it. B'yaveshim, it's by dry b'samim, because it's like grinding it, because it flakes. Right? L'maisa, the Shulchan Aruch is matir both. I don't know, I guess the Shulchan Aruch just ignored the Yerushalmi. The Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed to roll any psamims on Yontif. Those who are mematkin sachara b'gachelas, one is allowed to sweeten mustard seed with a coal. Those who say that you cannot. So, Mandamar mematkin, he who says that you can, is b'shenoso gabi gachelas, is where you put the mustard seed on the coal. And for some reason, that does not put out the coal. Excuse me, it doesn't extinguish the coal. He who says you cannot sweeten it, it's b'shanasa gachel, where you put the coal on it, and for some reason that puts out the coal. Now I don't know exactly the physics of it. I would say the opposite. If you put the mustard on it, it would put it out. If you put the coal on it, it wouldn't. But it's not up to me. I look for a change of Girsos. Nobody changes the Girso here. So somehow I know that's the difference. Now the interesting thing is the Gilin Shas and the Yerushalmi Mavur both bring down the Bavli and the Yerushalmi have a basic machlokas here. The Bavli draws the distinction between wooden coals and metal coals. In other words, smoldering metal. Hot wooden coals is an Isser Mechabe. Metal coals is no Isser Mechabe. So therefore you can You can sweeten the mustard seed on metal coals, not on wooden coals. But the Yerushalmi doesn't bring out a distinction because Yerushalmi holds that there's an Isur Kibui by metal coals the same way there's an Isur Kibui by wooden coals. So it just brings down a distinction whether you put the mustard on top or on bottom. Okay, Istani Tani, those who learn, Shavin Esakes, we're allowed to rub silver, Bikartikin, which is a silver polish. Istani Tani, there, those learned, ain't Shavin, not allowed to. Manam Shavin, you said you're allowed to, is Bishanos Meir, if you want to, you put a polish, as the Korban says, in water, you dilute in water before you want to, and you just dip your silver into it. So you don't actually rub it directly. And by them are ain't Shavin is where you put the actual silver polish on the silver and then rub, which is memachik. It's the doraisa of actually working something, because you're working the tarnish out of the silver, so that's forbidden. Okay? Istani Tani ain't Shavin. Those who said that. Oh, that's what I just read. Sorry. Now this is talking about getting back to our Mishnah. Meir says you're allowed to break open the house and take the stuff inside it. Rabbi Baha and Rabbi Yehuda b'Shem Shmuel said Uvad Keneged Pesach. Now, according to Korban means you're only allowed to break into the house where the door was, or where the opening was, not anywhere else, because I guess that's less of a soser. But the other Mefarshim learn, in fact, the Yerushalmi Vor brings a girsa that's Keneged Apchas, that it means that you're only allowed to take the fruit which is directly opposite where you opened up the building, not anywhere on the sides. You're sticking your hand straight ahead, but not turn to the sides. Now, I don't know why it should be a difference, but that's how they learn it. Now, it sounds like the rest of the Gemara more like the Korban Eidah. It says the Gemara, V'atani, this is a brisa which is a proof. This is not a question, it's a proof. Moini Chacham Meir, Chacham can see through Meir, because Somash B'karka, when you have seals in the ground, Shemefak V'kin, that you're allowed to loosen them, Umafkiim, and you're allowed to undo them, Umatirin, and Mafkim means to loosen, undo the strands. Umatirin, to undo the knot, V'chotchim, and you can cut. That's all on Yontif. However, b'Shabbos, Mifak B'kin, you're only allowed to loosen a seal, Avalom Mafkim, but you're not allowed actually to cut it, to loosen the strands, V'lo Matirin, nor are you allowed to undo the knot, V'lo Chotchim, nor are you allowed to cut. Ubikalim, if, however, all these things are surrounding a vessel as opposed to a doorway, something which is mechuber l'karka, b'Shabbos mutter, then it's mutter on Shabbos, and certainly mutter on Yontif, because there's no stira b'kelim. But in any event, here we're talking about doing things, obviously, the way Korban Eidah explains it, these are things opposite the door, right? The ropes and the locks, all these things are opposite the door. And it's Chachamim say so you're allowed to do certain things with these things on Yontif. So it sounds like the Korban Eidah explains, sounds like the Machlok Rav Meir and Rabbanan are talking specifically about the doorway, how you're allowed access to the doorway, but not that you go anywhere else in this house and open up a new path. And again, I'm not sure exactly why there should be a difference, right? Once you're being soser, anyway, I guess all I could say is it's the Rabbanan, so it's less of a Marasayan if there was once a door there to remove the bricks, as opposed to if there was no door there before.
Jewish ethics, doing an autopsy.
Yeah.
I've heard, I don't know if everyone agrees, but if there's been an operation site, so you can go in through the previous incision to get out whatever. It's less
of a bizarre made, so here it's less of a bizarre yontif. Could be. It's an interesting parallel. I'll give you an A+ for creativity. Might even have some validity to it. So, shkoyach. Okay. Ein Poich Mesaner definitely is a good hyper connection for Yerushalmi. Ein Poich Mesaner was now allowed to this is, they used to make their ner here is not the candle itself, but rather the container which holds oil. So Poich Mesaner means you have a bar of clay. So Poich means to pound a hole in it to make a container to hold oil out of the clay, right? So you can't do that. Neshul keli because you're making keli. Einosim pochmin was now to make coal on Yontif. It's also considered to be a malacha. Vein choyden Pilishleim was now to cut a wick into two. Right? You can cut it by, if you have the long wick, cut it in the middle by lighting the fire there, and then it splits into two on itself and becomes two candles instead of one.
Now, making the clay, that's still temporary, though. It's kind of permanent until you burn it in the oven.
I don't disagree. It's all these are the Rabbanans here. We're not talking about the rices. If he actually was the rices, so it'd be Pashros, or all these are the Rabbanans. Okay, Tani, all Masechta Beitza is the Rabbanans, essentially. Tani, Lefasim Sesumos. This is interesting halacha. If you have a closed jug, now this closed jug or closed pot is kind of a pot, earthenware pottery, and somehow you made it in a way that the top adheres to the bottom, and when you want to use it for the first time, you crack it open, and the top comes off the bottom. So before you use it, it looks like a big ball, right? But it's made obviously with an indentation or something around there.
A bent tube or something.
Well, it's like a like a tissue box, which is closed, and then you rip open the top in order to make it open. So here too, you had it was two pieces, but they were perforated, but the top was meant to break off at some point. I don't know what I can give you a description of. This might not be meaningful to you at all, but they in recent years they've been selling pre-filled Hanukkah candles. And the pre-filled Hanukkah candles, they're glass, and you break off the top in order. So this is the same idea. You have something which is one unit, and the top is meant to be broken off, and the top actually here will become the lid. In this case, of the pot. That's just when they made it in the kiln, it was more convenient to do it all in one piece. But a soda bottle, don't break it off. You unscrew the tap. Right. Yeah, but there was one piece. It was one piece, and then you took it off, take it off afterwards. So the thing is, Aslam Erev Yontif, be made before Yontif. Lo Yichasem B'Yontif, you cannot open it up, crack it open on Yontif. Neshu Kamachshu Kli B'Yontif, because you're like making a Keli Yontif. It's Makabeh Batish, right? So it's now the Brisa goes on to say Rishim Gamliel's Matir. Okay, and that's important because it'll come up in a minute. Tamatzina, we learned over there. Lefasim Aronios. Lefasim Aronios is a similar idea. It's a type of pot which you use closed, and then you open up when you want to cook. Shein Torah Bo'ol Hameis. So they use it. The Korban brings down when it's still closed. They use it like a plate. And then when they open up, so I guess they use it either to cook or for storage. So even when it's closed, it still has a use. So the Yerushalmi says, the Brisa says, that, or the Mishnah actually, it says, if you put them on in the oil of the mace, whatever's inside it is tar, right? Because it's Tzamid Pasil, it's a sealed Kli Cheres. There's no greater seal than the fact that it's still one piece, right? So therefore, anything inside it remains tar, right? But if a Zov carries them, they come Tomei. Why? Because they're already considered to be Kalim. Because again, as we said, some people use them actually to eat off his plates right now, so therefore they're already Makabel Tuma. Says the Gemara, it's also not Matami if the Zov carries it, because they're not fully complete yet. Why they're not fully complete? Because again, they have to be broken open. The Yerushalmi makes a comment. The Tosefta by us, meaning the first Tosefta you brought down the Gemara, it said Rishon Gamliel's matir to open the lefasim stumos on Yontif. So we obviously hold that they're already considered to be a keli. It's not makabeh patish when you open it up, right? So that single solitary individual opinion by us, that's called the Yechidah, is Kistam Tamon, is like the Stam Mishnah, meaning the Rabbanan over there in Eduyos, because there it said that Rabbanan are the ones who hold it's already a Keli, and it's Matame B'Maso Azav. Whereas the Yechidah, the Tamon, the opinion of a single Tana there, Blazer talk is that they're not mitami masa azov yet, because they're not considered to be kilim yet until they've been cracked open. Because two milacha is like the Rabbanan by us, because the Rabbanan by us are the ones who said that you're not allowed to open the keli on Yontif because it's makar patish, because not considered to be a full keli until you open it. So it's just a comment the Yerushalmi makes that that which is a solitary Tana over here is the opinion of the Rabbanan over there, and that which is a solitary Tana over there is the opinion of the Rabbanan over here. In other words, so there's those who hold that it is a keli even though it's not cracked open, and those who hold it's not a keli until it's fully cracked open. Okay? Rabbi Bishim Rav Yehuda said, "Bakas, if you have a piece of wood which is got caught fire and you want to save the piece of wood, so of course you're not allowed to extinguish the fire directly in Yotiv. Some of the so you put the wood next to a wall, bishvil shalot to kaske say so it won't get burnt anymore. Why is that? Because obviously you're cutting off oxygen from it by putting it there. You're not extinguishing it directly. That's okay. It's like a grama. Tani, we learned ein mechabi nesabakas. One is not allowed to extinguish a smoking piece of wood, bishvil lachus alev, in order to save the piece of wood. However, in bishvil shalot tashenes habayis, if it's in order that the house should not get smoky, vesakter, or the pot should not get smoky or burned, mutter allowed to extinguish a fire on yotav, which is of course what we do. Right? They're saying about to burn on your stove, so you're allowed to extinguish the fire underneath it. Right? The kibu is mutter if it's l'tzorach ochel nefesh, and not just l'tzorach ochel nefesh, but in order the house shouldn't full of smoke. Same idea. Amrei Achina said, "B'she'ein sham." The next word is a typo according to both the Mashbiach and the Gilin of Ephraim. It should be b'she'ein sham ur if there isn't a hot fire there. Yesham ur if there's a hot fire there. Mashlicha ur, you put it into hot fire. Vedayo, and that suffices. Why? Because it'll burn it up quicker. In other words, it's not that you're allowed to extinguish per se. It's that sometimes extinguishing puts out the smoky flame, right? But if there's another way of putting out a smoky flame by not extinguishing, but putting it in your fire, so then you have to put it in your fire. Okay? Says more Rabbi Nasser, if you host, that's good, makes sense. Kenan Amrin, that well, he's going back on the fact that you can put it out if it's smoking. Kenan Amrin, we said Hada Kiluraisa, eye ointment. Shori Meshif Umikomina Biyam Torah, you're allowed to apply on Yontif. So why are you allowed to apply? It must be because something which is for your own personal needs, even though it's not really food, it's permitted to do, and the eye ointment is of that nature. So too, if you have a smoky piece of wood in the house, even though it's not food, you're allowed to put it out for your own personal comfort. Okay?
Except it's a truth, isn't it?
So it says the Gemara again. Can't be other clear, right? So there's Ayin Min Shai Mishra Michol Min Abiyam Tova. Our mother said no. There's no comparison. Kam l'shima, kam l'rafua. One is to now. Everybody gives different interpretations on this line. Some say that means that it's more mistaber to be matir the eye ointment because it's a rafua, as opposed to the smoky wood. It's discomfort. Tough it out. Right? Some say the exact opposite. It's more mistaber to be matir the smoky wood because it's not a refuah, right? So there's no shchikas amamonim issue. But by something which is a refuah, we can't be matir because there's you're going to come to grind herbs for medicine, and
you're going to need both. If you have smoky air, you're going to need.
That's true. And some say that it's not a distinction, but rather clarification. Each one is mutter for a different reason. One is mutter because it's preservative. The other is mutter because it's for your own healing, which is the mutter, of course, when it comes to the eyes. There's yet one other interpretation. Oh, that's enough. All right. And the next one doesn't make much sense, so I'll leave it out. Three things stated about wicks to be machmer. And 3 about wicks to be makel. What are 3 not allowed to do? Not allowed to start making wick from scratch on Yontif. Not allowed to cut it in 2. Not allowed to singe it with fire so it should take later on better. The 3 things they are makel by wicks. You're allowed to crush it in your hand, I guess, to make it more pliable, because that's considered to be like kalachayaz, like with a shinui. You can soak it in oil, or you can divide it by the by fire, the stain there is the 2 candles. It says more b'tzarech l'shneim, you got to need both of them. It can't be a ruse. Tani Ber Yehuda Ber Pazi, the Vardalia said, maybe Shtener, so you bring 2 candle bases, the nose number Shtener, you put the 2 wicks from one, 2 of them, the Chokabur Shtener, so you buy in the middle with the 2 candles. Rabbi Yaakov Rav said, Mochnin Subsil Beyond, although you're not allowed to singe the psila, the wick, you're allowed to, in fact, take off the ashes by, Mochnin means making a needle straight. Sometimes that's your advantage. So that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov, that's not going to be makav patish or any such thing, and therefore it's mutter. Okay. Nowadays they sell, for some people, grilled fish. They sell this special wire mesh, to put your salmon on your barbecue, right? In order to grill it.
It's like a pancake thing.
Okay,
it's
I'm there.
Both sides, so you could turn it over.
It just easier to flip over.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it might flake and fall into the fire.
Oh, because fish.
Because fish flakes. So in the old days they weren't so sophisticated. What they would do is they would break a piece of pottery or take a piece of paper and put the fish in that and put it in the oven, so it wouldn't fall apart on the roasting. I don't know why the fire didn't. Well, they didn't have tinfoil.
That would hold it.
Yes, but they had paper.
They didn't have chocolate.
They oiled it. They oiled it.
They had dates.
They had no chocolate, no coffee, no tinfoil. We don't know how it is. On one of the kids' tapes, the little kid says the grandfather is telling the kid about Prague, right? So he says, what do they have in Prague? So he said, do they have pizza stores in Prague? So he said, no pizza stores in Prague. They have ice cream stores in Prague? So he said, no, they had no ice cream stores in Prague. They had butcher stores. So the little kid says, oh, Zadie, how the Eden suffered. So, all right. So ain't Shabbos Acheres, one cannot break pottery, ve'ein chayches and here cannot cut paper, litzos ba maliach in order to roast fish. Maliach is salted fish. And gorfin tan v'kirayim, one also is not allowed to clean out the inside of a oven, even from ashes. You're not allowed to clean it out. It's like masakin mona. To clean it out. You're allowed to tamp down the ashes. You're not allowed to put together, it's a very unknown halacha, you're not allowed to put together 2 barrels in order to put a pot on top of them. It's like boina. To take two things and put a pot on top is like boina. Right, if you leave a space underneath, of course, it's tefach. But you're talking all to do is amazing halacha.
Well, because you're creating something new.
It's like an oil. But even you did it on your tabletop. Even did it on a tabletop, right? It's awesome. As a result of that, one is also not allowed to support a kedera with a piece of wood. And this is... actually, I'm sorry. Pnei Moshe says here, different halacha, because wood is only given over. Interesting Pnei Moshe. It says, wood is only given over for heating and other purpose, and for any other purpose, wood is muktzah. So if you can't use a piece of wood, of course, unless it was designated to be a keli, right? But you can't use a piece of wood just to support your pot. So you're not allowed to use the door for that purpose. You're not allowed to lead an animal with a stick. Now, the many interpretations of this line, the Yerushalmi Amavur and the Amudi Yerushalayim say, you're not, as a result of our Mishnah, you're not allowed to stitch together a bird. So you want to stuff a bird, a turkey? They didn't have turkeys, but you want to stuff a bird? You're not allowed to stitch it. Why? Because you might cut the thread. Now, not the thread with which you make the stitches. It took me a minute to realize that. That's okay. There's no reason not to cut that, right? It's like any other cutting for the purpose of food. It means when you're sewing it, you're going to cut the thread off the spool. That cutting is forbidden, right? You cannot cut the thread in segments in order to make stitch. So that's what it means. Just like you're not allowed to cut the paper or cut the pottery in order to cook, so too you're not allowed to cut the thread in order to stitch your turkey, right? Also may have be on matava to mekatea. It should be menume. You're cutting the threads. Now, getting back to the next issue mission about clearing the oven. Ba'atid Rabbi Chia Rabbah, the daughter of Rabbi Chia the Great, Asas Meifa Gotanur, she wanted to come bake in an oven. Ashkacha Kipa Begava, so she found a mound of ashes in it. Asa Shesli Liabir, so she came to ask her father, can I take it out? Amalei, so Rabbi Chia, her father, actually tested her. He said, he's in Garfin, go wipe it out, or go take out the ashes. Amra, so she said to her father, Lina Yochla, I can't do it. Amar, so Rabbi Chia said, you're right, you can't do it. Isn't Kavshin, go tamp it down, that you're allowed to do. Yadas Havas. And Rabbi Chia's daughter knew the halacha. El Davas boy Mishma min Avu, she wanted to hear it from her father. It's an amazing concept. She wanted the Meseicha, right? Okay? Rav Amar Metzilimin and Minatano Lakira. Rav says you're allowed to take from the tanur into a kira. Now, there are various interpretations of this Gemara as well. The Yerushalmi Beitza learns like the carbon Ada, and I like the carbon Ada too. You're allowed to take a piece of wood from a tanur, a burning piece of wood, and put it in a kira. Because a kira is hotter than a tanur, so it's actually making a hotter fire. Avalom yikil tanur, but not from a kira to a tanur, because a kira is a hotter fire and a tanur is a lower fire. Kira has place for one pot, and tanur is a place for two pots, right? And a place for one pot is hotter because it's smaller, more restricted, right? So you're not allowed to take from a tanur to a kira, because that's like extinguishing. Rav Hava Brachana Mar Mitzilim Mitano Kir Mekil Tanur. You're allowed to do either one because the mice it's burning anywhere, right? Burns more, burns less, it's burning. Avalom Yavis Shabbos by now. So I guess it means that you're going to make sure it burns more slowly, so you'll still have it in the morning. So now take it out of the oven where it's going to burn up quicker. Put it somewhere it's going to burn slower in order to have it in the morning because that's like extinguishing. Says Yerushalmi again. Rabbi Avun B'Shem Rav said Matzim Mitana L'Kir Mekil Tani, go back and forth different types of ovens, and Me'avis Shachris, so you can make it burn slower, so you can have it in the morning. Avalom Yotzef L'Chol, but obviously not for Yotzef the weekday because that's Achana for the weekday. Ein Makim Shtei Kavil L'Shbos Leim. It's okay. You can't put two jugs together in order to put a pot on top of them. Because it's boina. Tani, we learned lo yetzi suma maklo v'lo roe v'tarmilo. A blind man should not go with a stick, nor a shepherd with his knapsack. Because duv to the chol. Rabbi Shimon Mati, Rabbi Shimon allows this. Now some people actually change the gears to Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon. But in any event, it's Rabbi Lezer, Shimon, our Mishnah allowed you to take out a stick, and Rabbi Shimon is allowing you to take out a stick. So it's either Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, or it's his father, Rabbi Shimon, and he held like his father. Rabbi Shimon Omer, and so to Rabbi Shimon said, once you're allowed to take out the stick, you're allowed also to push your animal with the stick, which is in fact what Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon allowed in our Mishnah. Are any of you planning a davening next door? What? No, we'll just go. You can just go a couple minutes late, and we can finish the parak. Okay? Rabbi Lezer Omer, don't you have a minion at Yeshurun? Don't you go to Yeshurun on Thursday nights?
Yeah, but then I go after 11 times.
I don't want to do that. Okay.
That's all right, because I have to wait anyways.
Right.
We'll go to 10:15.
Rabbi Lezer Omer, not to Adam Kisam Lachtus Boshinov. A person. Oh, you can go to 10 o'clock meeting in Eichenstein's though, aren't you? Are you going to Yeshurun?
Yeah.
So, there's a 10 o'clock meeting though, also at Eichenstein's.
But I can't mark color.
Oh, you can't do that.
I already have every minute
right.
planned out. Sorry.
Okay. Well, let's just finish the parak, then we'll let you go. Rabbi Lezer Menot Adam Kisam Lachtus Boshinov. Rabbi Lezer says a person could take a toothpick to to clean out his teeth. And he can take wood from the chotzer anywhere in his courtyard and light that. Anything which is in the courtyard is considered prepared. You can only take from in front of you. Now, sounds in front of you to me. It sounds like it's what's the difference in front of you and the chotzer? So the Bavli actually says that in front of you means in your house. But Yerushalmi doesn't hold that way. Yerushalmi holds in front of you is in your courtyard as well. So therefore, as Yerushalmi Mabe name, what's the difference between the Rabbi Lezer says that which is the Chotzer Chachamim say lefonav. So nafkamina is lasot tzibur beineihem. Can you make an interim pile? Adai to Rabbi Lezer, according to Rabbi Lezer, oisa tzibur. You can collect wood from all over your chotzer, put in a pile, and then put it in your oven. You have to put it directly into your fire. Their learning means you collect it and immediately put it in your fire, right? Milfanov literally means from in front of you, but it means you have to take it from the chotzer and immediately put it in the fire, as opposed to stopping to put it into a pile. Because if you collect from all over, that's not lefonav anymore. Lefonav means you take whatever wood is there and put it in the fire. But if you're going to take wood and collect it, right? So by there, the whole concept of lefonav is lost. Lefonav means there's a direct link between collecting and fire. If you make an interim step, it's no longer direct. So therefore, Rabbanan, this machlokas, whether you're allowed to make an interim pile of wood when you're collecting or not. One is not allowed to create fire on Yontif, right? Eitzim, not from wood, by rubbing wood. Not by rubbing stones. Not by using a magnifying glass. They didn't have lenses, right? But they used to put water into a bottle, and that used to magnify the sun, and that used to start a fire.
Is that how you
Yeah. When it's not allowed to heat up bricks, these are bricks of litzosleim which you use to roast on them, like lava rocks, in your barbecues. Lezer said also, if a person can stand on his muktzah, where he has drying dates or figs or whatever he has, Erev Shabbos at Shemitah, because there's no meiser necessary. It says, I'm going to eat from here tomorrow. All he needs is verbal declaration. He has to actually make markings. From year to year. Why not? Those who says you can whiten them, in other words, make them white hot. Those who says you can't make them white hot. He says you can make them white hot. Bivdukim, with already checked, meaning they've already been used once before. It's not where they weren't checked, meaning they weren't used once before. So now is when they're hardened and made more usable and durable. So that's why it's like makabeh patish, and that's forbidden. I have a kash Rabbi Lezer. The time we learned in the first parak, you can't take doves from a dovecot unless you did a meiser to the doves. You shook the dovecot from before Yontif began. And the note, Rabbi Lezer lav shamuti, who wasn't Rabbi Lezer from the Beis Medrash of Beis Shammai. So how come here he doesn't require a physical act like marking, like Rabbanan do, or he requires this verbal declaration? It says, you know what? It's different. Since there was something which is alive, needs more of a marking or more of an act, and that's why you have to shake the dovecot. Now, similarly, is a kashan chachamim. You need a ma'isa. You need a ma'isa to mark. And also say from here to there. It's kash rabbanon. To see it, the one we learned over there. All you need is verbal declaration by the doves. And here they say you actually need a mark. And further, can you say for them as well that there's something more chomer about something which is alive? It's not possible, right? Because then so it should be the exact opposite. It should be more machmir, something which is alive, than by this. And here we say the more machmir by this. So Taisus and Beitza gives an answer to this. He says that muktzah is different because it's worse. Because doves, you don't set aside consciously. But something in a muktzah which is drying, you consciously set aside until such time as it's fully dry. So that's why here actually the Rabbanan require more of a tikkun, more of a hachana to actually make a marking than they do by doves, because the doves, they're never dachi be'adayim, you never push them aside, so therefore they need less of a hachana, as opposed to muktzah, where you actually set aside the figs and the grapes and consciously gave up on eating them until they dry. So you need more of a mice in order to designate them, take them out of that techiyah b'yadayim. That's why you have to make a marking. Amuda Yerushalmi actually tries to change the girsa in the Gemara here to make it fit with that distinction which Taisa brings down. But that is a pretty neat trick which I failed to see how it works. So we will just leave that out.